Hey friends, welcome back to Jackson English Stories. I'm really glad you're here. Today, I want to start with a little story. Imagine this. You're standing in line at a coffee shop. It's early. You're still a little sleepy. You finally get to the counter, and the barista flashes you a big smile and says, "Hey there, what can I get started for you today?" And for a second, you freeze. Not because you don't know English, you do, but because that's not the phrase you practiced in your textbook, right? You were expecting something like, "What would you like to order?" Plain, simple, easy. Instead, it feels like they just threw a whole new sentence at you. Sound familiar? Today's story is about moments like that. The little surprises that happen when English gets real. Not the English you memorize, but the English you live. So before we dive into the conversation, let's set the scene a little more clearly. You're at that coffee shop. It's buzzing. There's the smell of fresh coffee, the clatter of cups. You finally step up, ready to order, and boom! The barista hits you with fast, friendly, casual English. What do you do? How do you keep up? Don't worry. We're gonna walk through it together. Let's jump into our story. Good morning. Morning. What can I get started for you today? I smile, trying to sound confident. I'd like a latte, please. Medium size. For here or to go? I blink. Wait, what? In my head, I'm scrambling. For here or to go? Oh, stay or take away. I laugh a little. To go, please. The barista smiles and punches it in. Awesome. That'll be $4.75. I hand over my card, feeling strangely proud. Sure, I hesitated for a second. But hey, I understood, I answered. I survived. That's a win in my book. See, here's the thing about real English. It's friendly. It's messy. It's full of little surprises. And the best way to get better at it is to live through moments just like this. Today, we're gonna explore some of these real-life conversations, how to understand them, how to respond naturally, and how to feel less frozen when things don't sound exactly like the textbook. Stick with me, and by the end of this episode, you'll feel a lot more ready for your next real English moment. Let's get into it. All right, let's imagine something together. You just spent months, maybe years, studying English. You know the grammar rules. You've memorized lists of vocabulary. You can recite, "The cat is under the table" in perfect English. And then, you finally meet a native speaker. And they say something like, "Yo, what's up? Wanna grab a bite?" And your brain goes completely blank. Like, what language is that? Have you ever felt that way? Yeah, me too. Here's the thing nobody tells you. Textbook English is not the same as real-world English. In textbooks, you learn phrases like, "Hello, how are you today?" "I am fine, thank you." And you? Sounds polite. Sounds perfect. But real conversations, way messier, way faster, way more fun, if you know how to catch the rhythm. Let's walk through a real-life moment. Picture this. You're at a friend's barbecue. The sun is out, music's playing, kids are running around. You walk up to someone and say, "Hello, how are you today?" They smile politely, but it feels a little awkward. Because in real life at a barbecue, people don't really talk like that. Instead, they might say, "Hey, how's it going? What's up? You good?" All super casual, all super quick. And if you don't recognize it, you miss the moment to connect. So why does this happen? Because textbook English is designed for clarity, not for reality. It's like learning to dance by reading a book. You know the steps. But when the music starts, you freeze. Because the feeling, the flow, is missing. And here's a little secret. Native speakers often break the rules you spent so long learning. They skip words. They mash words together. They use slang, jokes, half sentences. For example, in a textbook you learn, "Would you like to have dinner with me?" In real life, it sounds more like, "Hey, wanna grab dinner?" Same meaning, different music. Pretty crazy, right? Let me ask you something. Have you ever studied a phrase perfectly and then felt totally lost when someone said it in a casual, blurry way? If you have, congratulations. That means you're not broken. You're exactly where you need to be. Now here's the good news. You don't have to throw away everything you learned. Grammar, vocabulary, they're still important. But to really understand English, you have to train your ears, not just your brain. You have to listen to English as it's actually spoken. Fast, friendly, full of little twists and turns. And here's a fun exercise for you. Next time you watch a movie or a podcast, try to spot the differences between school English and real English. Write them down, laugh at them, enjoy the chaos. Because learning real English, it's like learning to surf. You can't control the waves. You just learn how to ride them. And believe me, once you catch that rhythm, conversation feels amazing. So now the big question is, if real English sounds so different, how can you start catching it faster? What's the secret to surviving and thriving in real conversations? Stick with me, because that's exactly what we're diving into next. All right, let's jump into another real-life moment. Picture this. You're traveling. You're feeling confident. You walk into a cozy little bakery and say, "Hi, can I get a croissant, please?" The cashier blinks at you. "I'm sorry." "A what?" You repeat it. They still look puzzled. A line forms behind you. You feel your face getting warm. And then, someone behind you leans in and says, "She means a croissant," pronounced like croissant. Ouch. Have you ever had a moment like that? Where you knew the word, but your pronunciation built a wall instead of a bridge? Yeah, it happens to everyone learning a new language. And here's the funny thing. In English, tiny pronunciation mistakes can totally change the conversation, or even stop it. Let's break this down for a second. Some English words are tricky because they look one way but sound completely different, like salmon. We don't say the L. It's salmon, not salmon. Debt. The B is silent. It sounds like debt. Vegetable. It's not vegetable. It's vegetable. Wild, right? And then there are words where a tiny shift changes the meaning completely. Take these two. Sheet, like a bed sheet. She. Well, you know. One little sound, one little mistake, and boom, you're having a very different conversation. Scary? Maybe a little. But honestly, it's also kinda hilarious when you think about it. Here's the real lesson. Pronunciation isn't about perfection. It's about being understood. And to be understood, you need to listen carefully to how native speakers say words, not just how they're spelled. Let me ask you something. When you learn a new English word, do you focus more on how it's written or how it sounds? Yeah, I used to focus on the spelling too. But the truth is, English is full of weird spelling rules that don't match how we actually talk. That's why if you want to sound more natural and avoid those bakery disasters, you've got to practice hearing and repeating real pronunciation. Even 5 minutes a day can make a huge difference. Here's a little challenge for you. Pick one tricky word today. Maybe something like comfortable or restaurant, and practice saying it 10 times out loud. Fast, slow, with a smile, with a yawn. Get your mouth used to the rhythm, because pronunciation isn't just in your brain, it's muscle memory too. And the more you practice in fun, low-pressure ways, the less nervous you'll feel when it's showtime, whether you're ordering croissants, lattes, or just chatting with new friends. Now, you might be wondering, if pronunciation mistakes can confuse people, what about idioms and slang? What happens when you understand the words, but the meaning is still a mystery? Stick around, because that's exactly what we're diving into next. All right, picture this. You're finally feeling good about your English. You're ordering coffee, asking for directions, and then one day a coworker says to you, "Hey, just touching base about the meeting later." You freeze. Touching what? You quickly replay it in your head. Touching base? Like a baseball game? Is he asking you to run somewhere? It sounds silly now, but in the moment, it feels like the ground disappears under your feet. If you've ever been completely confused by a perfectly normal-sounding sentence, you're not alone. Here's the truth. Native speakers love idioms. They use them all the time, at work, at the gym, with friends, even when ordering food. And if you don't know them, it's like missing half the conversation. Idioms are like a secret handshake. They're short, casual, colorful, and they rarely make literal sense. For example, when someone says, "It's a piece of cake," they don't mean they're holding dessert. They mean something is easy. Or when your friend says, "break a leg," before a performance, They're not hoping you end up in the hospital. It actually means good luck. Isn't that crazy? Why does English do that? Because language isn't just about words. It's about culture, emotion, history, and sometimes a little bit of weirdness. So how do you deal with idioms when they pop up out of nowhere? Let's break it down. First, don't panic. Second, don't try to translate them word for word. That will only make you more confused. Instead, listen for the feeling. Listen to the tone, the situation, the way people react. If someone laughs and says, "That meeting was a train wreck," they probably don't mean there were actual trains involved. It's just a fun way to say things went terribly wrong. Let me ask you, have you ever tried to memorize a whole list of idioms? But when someone used one in a real conversation, you still felt lost? That's normal. Knowing the dictionary meaning isn't enough. You have to hear idioms in real conversations over and over to really get the vibe. Here's a simple idea to make it easier. Pick one idiom a week. Not 10, just one. Use it. Play with it. Drop it into conversations. Make it part of how you think, not just something you memorize. Because the more naturally you use these little phrases, the more native your English will sound, and the more fun you'll have. Now you might be wondering, okay, idioms are tricky, but what about moments when you completely misunderstand someone in real life? What should you actually do when that happens? How do you survive the awkwardness without wanting to crawl under a table? Don't worry, we're about to dive into that next. Imagine this. You're sitting in a busy coffee shop, catching up with a new friend. Everything's going great. You're nodding, smiling, feeling pretty good about your English. Then suddenly they say something like, "Yeah, after that whole thing blew over, we just decided to call it a wash." You blink. You nod again, pretending you understand. But inside, total confusion. Call what a wash. What blew over? Did I miss something? We've all been there. That awkward moment when you realize you have no idea what someone just said, and the panic starts creeping in. Sound familiar? Here's the truth. Not understanding everything is completely normal, especially in a second language. In fact, even native speakers sometimes miss things and have to ask again. The key isn't about never getting confused. It's about knowing how to handle the moment when it happens. And trust me, you can handle it with way more confidence and way less stress than you think. First tip, don't freeze. Don't shut down. Instead, breathe and stay in the conversation. A simple phrase like, "Sorry, could you say that again?" Or, "I'm not sure I caught that. Can you explain it a little more?" can save you. Most people are happy, actually happy, to repeat or explain if you ask kindly. And you know what? They respect you more for being brave enough to ask. Have you ever noticed how kids ask questions all the time without feeling embarrassed? Like, "What does that mean?" Or, "Why?" They're not worried about sounding silly. They're just curious. And that's exactly the mindset you need in these moments. Not fear, curiosity. Here's another little trick. Paraphrasing. When you're not sure, you can repeat part of what you understood and check. Like, oh, you mean it didn't work out in the end? This shows you're engaged, you're listening, and you're trying to connect. And honestly, that's way more important than understanding every single word. Let me ask you, have you ever nodded along in a conversation even though you didn't understand, just to avoid feeling awkward? We all have. But here's the thing. Pretending only works for a few seconds. After that, it gets more confusing. It's way easier and way braver to just say, "Sorry, what does that mean?" And guess what? The world doesn't end. In fact, it opens up. So next time you feel that familiar panic rising, remember, confusion isn't failure. It's a doorway to learning. The people who become truly fluent aren't the ones who never make mistakes. They're the ones who stay in the conversation, even when it feels messy, even when they're unsure. Now, speaking of messy, what happens when not only the words, but the whole accent sounds different from what you're used to? How do you deal when English suddenly feels like a whole new language just because of the way it's pronounced? Don't worry, because that's exactly what we're exploring next. Imagine this. You've been practicing English for months, maybe even years. You feel pretty confident, until one day you land at Heathrow Airport in London. You walk up to the immigration officer and he says, "All right, mate, just pop your bag on the belt. Cheers." And you stand there, smiling, completely lost. Pop what? Cheers for what? And why is he calling me mate? Welcome to the world of accent shock, where suddenly English sounds almost like a whole different language. Here's the thing nobody warns you about. Learning English isn't just about the words. It's about how people say them. American English, British English, Australian English. They all have their own music, their own rhythm, their own flavor. And sometimes it feels like you need 3 different dictionaries just to survive. Let's break it down. American English tends to be a bit more flat and direct. For example, you'll hear, "Can I get a coffee?" very clearly. British English often sounds a bit rounder, softer. "Could I have a coffee, please?" And Australian English? It's fast, casual, and full of shortcuts. "Can I grab a cuppa?" Means, well, it depends, but usually just a simple coffee or tea. Have you ever noticed how in Australian English, whole syllables just disappear? Like, "How you going?" instead of "How are you doing?" It's friendly, but if you're not used to it, it feels like they're speaking another language entirely. So, what do you do when accent shock hits you? First, breathe. Second, listen for the words you do recognize, not the ones you don't. Focus on the key words. If someone says, "Chuck it in the boot," you might not catch every word, but you can guess they mean something about the car. Hint, the boot is the trunk. And here's a little tip. Accents get easier with exposure. The first time you hear an Australian say "no worries," it might sound like "nah whiz." But after a few conversations, Your brain starts adjusting, almost like tuning into a new radio station. Let me ask you, have you ever thought you were bad at English when really you just weren't used to the accent? It's not your fault. It's just practice and a little patience. One more thing. Don't be afraid to ask someone to slow down or repeat themselves. It's completely normal. You can say, "Sorry, could you say that a little slower?" Or even, "I'm not used to this accent yet, but I'd love to understand." Most people will appreciate your honesty, and they'll usually smile and help. Accent shock feels big at first, but over time it becomes one of the most exciting parts of learning English, because each new accent you understand is like unlocking a whole new world of stories, friendships, and opportunities. Now, speaking of understanding, what happens when you're lost in a big, busy city and you have to ask for directions? How do you keep your cool when the streets are packed, the noise is loud, and the English feels even faster? Don't worry. That's exactly where we're headed next. Imagine this. You're in the middle of a huge city you've never been to before. Maybe it's New York. Maybe it's London. Maybe it's Sydney. You step out of the train station, full of hope, full of adventure. And then you realize you have no idea where you're going. Your phone's GPS isn't loading. The streets look like a maze. You need help. You spot a local and think, "Okay, I'll just ask." You walk up, heart pounding a little, and say, "Excuse me, can you tell me where the museum is?" Sounds easy, right? But then they respond, "Oh, sure. Just go down 2 blocks, take a left at the light, cut across the park, hang a right past the bodega, and it's kitty corner from the pharmacy." And your brain goes, "Wait, what? Bodega, kitty corner, cut across where?" If you've ever felt overwhelmed asking for directions in English, you are absolutely not alone. It's not just about knowing the words. It's about keeping calm when the answers come at you fast and full of local slang. Let's break it down. First, most people give directions in a rhythm. Short phrases, landmarks, little hints, like go straight, turn left, it's past the coffee shop, you'll see it on your right. They don't usually speak slowly. They just toss the instructions out like confetti and expect you to catch it all. Second, locals love using their own expressions. Bodega in New York means a small neighborhood store. Kitty corner means diagonally across the street. Hang a right just means turn right. Wild right. It's like learning a whole new mini language just for directions. So what can you do when this happens? First tip, listen for landmarks, not every word. You don't need to understand 100%, just catch key points. Second tip, don't be shy about confirming. You can say, "So I go straight, then left at the lights." Repeating it back helps you double check and shows you're paying attention. Let me ask you, have you ever been too nervous to ask for directions and ended up wandering around way longer than you needed to? Yeah, me too. But honestly, asking, even if it's messy, almost always gets you where you need to go faster than guessing. And here's something fun. If you really want to sound like a local, you can practice some casual phrases like, "Is it far from here?" or "Am I going the right way?" Little questions like that keep the conversation flowing and make you sound way more natural. Getting a little lost isn't a failure. It's part of the adventure. Some of the best conversations and best memories happen when you're a little off track, asking strangers for help, laughing at your own confusion. Now, speaking of small conversations that turn into something bigger, what if you could take tiny chats, like asking for directions, and build real connections with people? What if small talk could actually help you feel more fluent and more confident? Well, that's exactly where we're headed next. Imagine this. You're standing in line at a coffee shop, waiting for your morning caffeine fix. The person next to you smiles and says, "Man, this line's crazy today, huh?" You freeze for a second. Your brain races. Should I respond? Should I just nod? Should I start a full conversation about coffee and humanity? It's just small talk, right? Nothing serious. But what if I told you? Mastering small talk is one of the most powerful tools you can have to feel truly confident in English. Small talk is that magical, everyday kind of conversation that opens doors. It's how strangers become acquaintances, and how acquaintances become friends. And here's the thing. It's not about deep, life-changing topics. It's about noticing the little things around you. The weather, the line at the store, the weekend plans, and using them to connect. Let's break it down. In real life, small talk usually starts with a simple comment or question, like, "Beautiful day, isn't it?" Or, "Is it always this busy here?" Notice how it's not a big, scary question. It's light, easy, and open-ended, giving the other person a chance to respond without feeling pressured. Have you ever been worried that small talk might feel fake or awkward? Here's the truth. It's not about saying the perfect thing. It's about showing you're open, friendly, and interested. People don't remember every word you say. They remember how you made them feel. And small talk makes people feel comfortable. Here's a little secret. You don't even need a big vocabulary to master small talk. You just need a few simple questions ready. For example, you can ask, "How's your day going?" Or, "Got any fun plans for the weekend?" These little questions can lead to bigger, more meaningful conversations without you even realizing it. Let me ask you, have you ever missed an opportunity to talk to someone because you didn't know how to start? We've all been there. But imagine if you had just one or two small questions ready. You could have made a new friend, or at least made someone's day a little brighter. And here's something even better. Small talk isn't just for strangers. It makes your English feel more alive, more natural, even when talking with coworkers, classmates, or neighbors. It's like building tiny bridges everywhere you go. The best part? The more you practice small talk, the easier it gets. It's just like exercising a muscle. At first, it feels awkward. Then one day, It feels natural. And suddenly, you're not just practicing English, you're living it. Now, you might be wondering, once you get comfortable starting small conversations, how do you stay confident when ordering food, especially in a busy cafe where everything moves fast? How do you sound natural when you're under a little pressure? Don't worry, because that's exactly where we're heading next. Imagine this. You walk into a busy coffee shop, the kind where the air smells like fresh espresso and people are buzzing around with laptops and morning energy. You finally make it to the counter. The barista flashes a quick smile and says, "Hey there, what can I get started for you?" And suddenly, all those perfect textbook sentences you practiced fly right out of your head. You panic and blurt out something like, "Coffee, please." The barista nods politely, but you know you sounded a little awkward. Don't worry, we've all been there. Ordering food and drinks in English feels easy in your head until you have to do it out loud in real life with real people waiting behind you.
Here's the thing. Survival English at restaurants and coffee shops isn't about sounding perfect. It's about being quick, clear, and a little flexible. In real life, people don't always use full, formal sentences. Instead of, "I would like a coffee, please," you'll hear, "Can I get a latte?" Or even just, "Medium drip, please." It's fast, it's casual, it's real. Let's break down a few phrases you'll hear all the time. When the barista asks, "For here or to go?" they're simply asking, "Are you staying or taking it with you?" You can answer, "To go, please," or "For here, thanks." Another common one. After you order, they might say, "That'll be $5.50. It's just a fast way to tell you the price. No need to overthink it. Have you ever been caught off guard by a casual question at a restaurant? Like when you order, and the waiter immediately asks, "Would you like fries or salad with that?" Sometimes it feels like they're speaking another language just because it's so fast. But here's the trick. Expect it. Know that after you order, they might offer extras. Just listen for key words, fries, salad, drink, size, and respond with a simple choice. Let me ask you, have you ever felt like you needed to speak in full, perfect sentences when ordering, and ended up making it harder for yourself? You're not alone. In busy places, short and simple is actually better. The goal isn't to show off your grammar, it's to get your coffee, and maybe even enjoy a little friendly chat along the way. Here's a little fun tip. Practice ordering out loud when you're at home. Pretend you're at the counter. Say things like, "Can I get a cappuccino, please?" Or, "I'll have a turkey sandwich to go." The more you practice these small, real-life phrases, the more natural it will feel when you're actually standing there. Ordering food is one of the best mini-missions you can give yourself when practicing English. It's quick, it's real, and it gives you that awesome little boost of confidence when you walk away with your coffee and a smile. Now, speaking of real-life confidence, what happens when something goes wrong? Like your order's wrong, or there's a problem with your food? How do you stay calm, polite, and fix the situation in English? Don't worry, That's exactly what we're diving into next. Imagine this. You check into a hotel after a long, exhausting flight. All you want is a hot shower and a good night's sleep. But when you walk into your room, it's freezing cold, and the heater doesn't work. You pick up the phone to call the front desk, and then suddenly, you freeze. How do you explain the problem clearly? How do you complain without sounding rude or upset? Handling complaints politely in English is one of those real-life skills that feels scary at first. But once you learn a few simple strategies, it becomes a lot easier.
Let's start here. In American English, it's very common and very okay to raise a problem as long as you stay calm and polite. In fact, most people appreciate it when you explain things clearly. Instead of saying, "The heater is broken," in an angry voice, you could say, "Hi, I'm having a little trouble with the heater in my room. Could someone help me, please?" See the difference? It's soft, it's clear, and it invites the other person to solve the problem without feeling defensive. Here's a little tip. Start by explaining what's wrong in a neutral way, using phrases like, "I'm having an issue with," or "There seems to be a problem with," and then politely ask for help. A small change in your tone can make a huge difference in how people respond to you. Have you ever felt too nervous to complain and ended up just accepting a bad situation? Like eating cold food at a restaurant or staying silent when your order was wrong. We've all been there. But the truth is, speaking up, politely, not only gets the issue fixed, it also builds your confidence. Here's another real-world example. Imagine you're at a store and you bought something that doesn't work. Instead of saying, "This is bad," you can say, "Hi, I just bought this, but it doesn't seem to be working properly. Could I exchange it or get some help?" It's respectful, it's professional, and most of the time people will be happy to help. Let me ask you, have you practiced polite complaint sentences before? Because honestly, the words are simple. But the real trick is the attitude you bring to the conversation. Calm, clear, polite. That's the magic trio. And here's something even more powerful. When you handle complaints well, you don't just solve a small problem. You build a skill that helps you in your career, your travels, and your daily life. It shows maturity, professionalism, and confidence in any language. Now, speaking of confidence, what about when you have to handle fast conversations without seeing the person's face, like phone calls? When you can't read their body language, can't rely on smiles or gestures, only their voice. How do you stay calm and understand every word? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dive into next. Imagine this. You're at home, relaxing after a long day, and your phone rings. It's the hotel front desk calling to confirm your reservation. You pick up, say hello, and suddenly the words start flying at you, fast, flat, and with no smiling faces or hand gestures to help you out. "Good evening. This is front desk. Just double-checking your late check-in. Can you confirm arrival before 11? And for a second, it feels like all your English disappeared. No body language, no friendly expressions, just a voice, quick and serious. Welcome to the real test of your listening skills. Phone conversations. Talking on the phone in English can feel 10 times harder than face-to-face conversations. And it's not because your English is bad, it's because you lose all those little helpful hints, like lip reading, hand signals, and warm smiles. On the phone, it's just sound, and sound alone moves fast. Let's break it down. In real-life phone calls, people often speak in quick rhythmic chunks, not in perfect textbook sentences. They drop small words. They shorten phrases. Instead of, "Would you like me to send you the confirmation email now?" you might hear, "Wanna shoot you the details now?" It's fast, casual, and a little messy. And that's normal. Have you ever felt completely confident in your English until you had to talk on the phone? It's like a different world, right? You're not alone. In fact, even native speakers sometimes say, "Sorry, can you repeat that?" during phone calls. It's part of the game. Here's the real trick. Develop a few lifesaver phrases you can use whenever you're stuck. Like, "Sorry, the line's a bit unclear. Could you say that again?" Or, "Could you speak a little slower, please?" These small, polite phrases are your secret weapons. They buy you time, and they show the other person you're actively trying, not just sitting there lost. Another little tip. Listen for keywords, not every word. If you hear reservation, arrival, and 11 p.m., you already know the main idea, even if you didn't catch every detail. Focus on the big picture first, and confirm the smaller points if needed. Let me ask you, have you ever panicked halfway through a phone call because you missed one word? We all have. But the truth is, most of the time, the conversation isn't as complicated as it sounds. You just need to slow down, breathe, and focus on what matters.
And here's something encouraging. The more you practice, the easier it gets. You can even practice by calling restaurants to ask about their hours or booking a haircut appointment. Little 5-minute calls that build your phone muscles without a lot of pressure. Now, speaking of practice, what if you could turn casual listening into a powerful daily habit? What if you could train your brain to catch real English faster, even without being in an English-speaking country? Well, that's exactly where we're heading next. Imagine this. You're walking through a local street market, just soaking in the vibe, the music, the laughter, the energy. You stop at a food truck, and the guy behind the counter says, "Hey, buddy, you good? Want to grab a bite? It's fire, man." And you stand there thinking, "Wait, what? I'm good? Grab a bite? Fire? Are we talking about food or an actual emergency?" If you've ever felt completely thrown off by casual slang or street talk, you are absolutely not alone. Welcome to the wild, colorful world of real English. Here's the truth. The English you hear in everyday life, at parks, coffee shops, concerts, or casual conversations, is packed with slang, shortcuts, and playful expressions. It's fast, it's messy, and honestly, it's what makes English feel alive. Let's break it down. When someone says, "You good?" they're not asking about your health. They're casually checking if you're okay or if you need anything. When they say, "Grab a bite," they just mean, "Let's get something to eat." And if they say something's fire, it doesn't mean it's burning. It means it's awesome, amazing, top-notch. Have you ever tried studying slang from a long vocabulary list, only to realize people don't use half those phrases in real life? Yeah, me too. The real secret isn't memorizing random slang words. It's hearing them in context, in real conversations, where you can feel the meaning, not just read it. One fun way to do this is to treat slang like a game. Next time you hear a new slang word, don't just look it up. Write down when you heard it, who said it, and how they said it. Ask yourself, was it a compliment? A joke? A casual way to connect? Because slang isn't just about the word itself. It's about the feeling behind it. Let me ask you, have you ever felt like you understood the words, but missed the meaning because of the tone or the situation? That's actually a good sign. It means your brain is starting to notice the deeper layers of English. And here's a little tip. If you hear a new phrase and you're not sure what it means, you can always smile and say, "That's a cool expression. What does it mean?" Most native speakers love explaining slang. It makes them feel like they're letting you in on a little secret. Learning real street talk isn't just about fitting in. It's about feeling the real rhythm of English. It's about laughing at jokes, catching the vibe of a place, and truly connecting with people on their level. Now, speaking of rhythm and connection, what if you could train yourself to think in English, not just translate everything in your head? What if English could start feeling as natural as your own language? That's exactly where we're heading next. Imagine this. You're sitting on a park bench, just people watching, no phone in your hand, no distractions. A little kid runs by chasing a balloon. An old couple laughs on a nearby bench. A street musician starts playing guitar. And without even trying, your mind starts describing everything in English. You're not translating from your first language. You're not thinking, "Wait, how do I say that?" It just flows. It feels natural, automatic. Like English isn't something you're forcing anymore. It's just part of you. That's what thinking in English feels like. And guess what? You don't have to be perfect to get there. Here's the truth. Thinking in English isn't about speaking faster. It's about making English the first place your brain goes when you experience the world. And the good news? You can train this, step by step, moment by moment. Let's break it down. You can start small. When you're walking to work, describe what you see. The sky looks beautiful today. I need to grab some groceries later. When you're choosing dinner, think, maybe pasta sounds good. It's not about big, perfect sentences. It's about tiny thoughts, little reactions, short inner conversations, all in English. Have you ever caught yourself silently talking to yourself? Like, "Where did I leave my keys?" or "I'm so tired today"? That's the perfect place to start switching to English. It's private, it's low pressure, and it builds the muscle of thinking naturally. Here's a fun idea. Pick a theme of the day. For example, today, every time you think about food, do it in English. Tomorrow, maybe it's every time you check your phone. Little by little, English stops being something extra and starts becoming the background music of your life. Let me ask you, have you ever found yourself stuck because you tried to translate everything word for word? It's exhausting, right? Thinking directly in English frees you from that trap. You start to feel lighter, faster, more alive in conversations. And here's a little secret. When you start thinking in English, you stop chasing words, and words start chasing you. Expressions pop into your mind without effort. You begin to feel the right sentence instead of building it like a puzzle. Now, speaking of building something natural, what if we took all these small skills, listening, speaking, understanding slang, thinking in English, and put them together into one simple daily practice? Something you could actually follow every single day to get better without feeling overwhelmed? Well, that's exactly what we're going to create together next. Imagine this. You wake up in the morning, stretch, grab your coffee, and without even thinking, you whisper to yourself, "Today's gonna be a good day." In English. You scroll your phone, read a quick article headline. In English. Later, while walking to work or making breakfast, you listen to a short podcast. Again, in English. Nothing crazy. No big study session. Just tiny moments woven into your real life. That's what building a daily English routine really looks like. And those small steps, they add up to big changes. Here's the truth. You don't need 3 hours a day and a giant stack of textbooks to make real progress. You need tiny, consistent actions that fit your actual life. Little habits you can do without feeling stressed or overwhelmed.
Let's break it down. Think about your day. Where could English fit naturally? Maybe 5 minutes of reading while you sip your coffee. Maybe repeating a new phrase out loud while you brush your teeth. Maybe switching your phone's language to English just to get used to new words popping up. Have you ever set a huge goal like, "I'm going to study English 2 hours every day," only to burn out by the third day? We all have. That's why it's smarter and way more sustainable to focus on tiny wins. 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. It builds up like drops of water filling a glass. Here's a fun idea. Create a daily English menu. Just a few small activities you can pick from every day. Like, listen to a short English podcast. Read one article. Write 2 sentences about your day. Watch a funny English video. Practice one new phrase out loud. You don't have to do everything every day. You just have to keep showing up. Let me ask you, what's one tiny thing you could add to your day today to make English feel a little closer, a little more natural? Think about it. Choose something that feels easy and fun, not a chore. Because here's the beautiful part. It's not about being perfect. It's about building a life where English is simply part of your rhythm, like brushing your teeth or tying your shoes. Easy, automatic, natural. Now, Speaking of building something beautiful, what if we zoomed out for a second? What if we looked at the bigger picture? Not just daily habits, but the whole journey of learning English, the ups, the downs, the tiny victories. What if we celebrated everything you're already doing right? Well, that's exactly what we're going to wrap up with next. Imagine this. You're sitting quietly at the end of a long day. Maybe you're holding a cup of tea, maybe just watching the sunset through the window, and you suddenly realize, today, without even thinking, you answered a question in English. You ordered your coffee with confidence. You understood a joke in a podcast. You smiled when you caught a slang word you once had no idea about. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't flashy. But it was real. And it was yours. That's progress, the kind that matters. Here's the thing about learning English, or learning anything, really. It's not a straight line. It's not just about climbing higher and higher every day. It's about showing up. It's about trying again when you feel awkward. It's about laughing at the silly mistakes. It's about those tiny, quiet victories that no one else sees, but you know they happened. Let's be real. Some days will feel amazing. Words will flow. You'll feel unstoppable. Other days, you might mix up simple sentences or forget a word you've used 100 times before. And that's okay. That's normal. That's part of the beautiful, messy human journey of learning. Have you ever compared yourself to someone else and thought, I'll never sound like that? I have. But here's the truth. No one else can walk your path. No one else has your story, your dreams, your reasons for learning English. And that makes your journey powerful, exactly the way it is. Here's a little reminder I always come back to. Progress isn't about being perfect. Progress is about being a little braver today than you were yesterday. It's ordering the coffee, even if you mess up the word croissant. It's asking the question, even if your accent shows. It's choosing connection over perfection every single time. Let me ask you, when was the last time you actually paused and celebrated how far you've come? Even just a little? Maybe today's a good day to do that. You're not at the beginning anymore. You're on the road. You're in the story. And it's a good one. So wherever you are right now, in your living room, on the bus, taking a walk, take a deep breath. Smile. Trust your journey. Trust the small steps, the imperfect conversations, the moments of courage. Because all of it, every single piece, is shaping the confident English speaker you're becoming. And the best part, this isn't the end. It's just the beginning of 1,000 new conversations, 1,000 new opportunities waiting for you. One brave little sentence at a time. Imagine this. You're sitting back, thinking about everything we just talked about. The little moments of courage, the real conversations, the small wins that add up over time. Maybe you're already picturing your next step. The next coffee you'll order, the next friendly chat you'll have, the next time you'll smile because English just flows. And if you're feeling even just a little more inspired, a little more ready to try again tomorrow, that's the real magic. Before we wrap up today, I just want to say, thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up for yourself, for believing that every small step matters, because it does. You are building something beautiful, even on the days when it feels invisible.
If today's video made you think, smile, or gave you a tiny bit of courage, I'd love it if you hit that like button. It helps this little community grow, and it shows YouTube that people like you are here, learning, growing, and sharing this journey. And hey, if you want more stories, more real-life English tips, and a little more encouragement for the road ahead, don't forget to subscribe. We're building something special here. And there's always room for one more voice, one more story, one more brave learner like you. Also, I'd love to hear from you. What was one moment in your English journey that made you feel proud, even if it was small? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. Your story might be the exact encouragement someone else needs today. All right, friend. Wherever you are right now, remember, your English doesn't have to be perfect to be powerful. Keep learning, keep speaking, keep living your story, one beautiful, imperfect, unforgettable moment at a time. And I can't wait to see you in the next video.